anywhere else because of income inequality in the Niger Delta is even more profound than anywhere else in the country. Whilst there's a lot of income there, there's a lot of inequality. Poverty in the Niger Delta, in the creeks, is higher than poverty anywhere else in the country. So because of these inequalities, because of this lack of opportunity, because of this situation of despair, people are more likely to move from being moderate to being extreme. And as, as the elections of 2015 get closer, the difference between political misunderstanding and political violence can get very short. So, one, the tactical approach to this is to try and resolve conflict, but the more strategic approach is to create an environment where you build hope and create opportunities, not only in the service sector, which is what Jetta is talking about, but also in the productive sector where there are linkages, where you employ people and deal with the broader initiatives that can bring stability in the region. Because political stability, the political momentum is much slower than the economic momentum. And so when there's economic success and political failure, then that is a recipe for conflict. These initiatives are supposed to bridge and align the political momentum with the economic momentum.
Okay, and the Niger Delta Legacy Engagement Board, what is it that you're bringing on the table?
Well, first of all, I must say that I have really surprised myself at the level of commitment that I've given to this engagement. But it is the product of a dream of many people. And on one occasion, I've actually said, we are not dreaming quite as much as we should. There's nothing wrong with dreaming. But when dreams are accompanied by actions, diversified as we are, united in purpose, directed as we are to achieving this very important aim in the Niger Delta, dreams are worth dreaming. We have dreamt and we have come together to see that, there is indeed an alternative to the quagmire that we in the past have found ourselves in the Niger Delta. Because the narrative on the streets there is, you cannot get anything in this region unless you do some violence. And we see practically people who once carried arms against the state are living very prosperous lives in the Delta. But we think that we cannot leave such a legacy to succeeding generations. There must be a way to break out of that vicious cycle, which is what we are trying to do. To plant in the streets of Port Harcourt, Yenagoa, Wari, wherever we may find ourselves, a different narrative, namely that you can actually do something. You can actually become somebody in this region without doing violence. And even where you are confronted with violence, there are alternatives to resolving disputes. This is what we want to do.
Okay, Jetta,
sorry, I was just going to ask Jeffrey Hawkins here, the U.S. Consul General. In terms of engaging the communities using creative arts, why does the U.S. government feel this is the best approach?
Well, it's interesting. The whole approach came about very organically. We started not with an interest in working with Nollywood or film. We started with an interest in making change in the Delta. And the three gentlemen that you see here with me today and a lot of other people that are deeply committed to change thought a lot about how we might be able to do that. And so we this kind of just came about on its own. And then really the Dawn in the Creeks and the media element of this is the brainchild of Jetta. I mean, he did an absolutely fantastic job developing this project very quickly. He has incredibly talented people working with him. His film crew is absolutely fantastic, and you'll see in the show some of the shots are just incredibly artistic and really high quality stuff. And they were able to take all those resources, take this idea, and really communicate with people out there. And I don't see a lot of television where people like the people that Jetta was out there talking to in those three states, in Delta, Bayelsa, and Rivers. I don't see a lot of shows where people from the streets are given a real voice and given an opportunity to propose an alternative future And Jetta's creativity has allowed that to happen. Now, what we want to do with that is take those voices, take those words, and use them as an avenue to reach a lot more people and do a lot of other engagements. And there's a diplomatic part to this. There's a community engagement part as well. It's not just about TV or bringing people to Nollywood. It's about a lot of things. But these guys are behind all that.
I'm sure cynics will probably say, do you seriously believe that this could influence change and stop or stem any possible tide of violence?
It's easy to be cynical, but what I often say to people is that let's describe failure for this project. Let's just say that we fail miserably, we don't bring that kind of change to the Delta. We still will have reached millions of Nigerians, not just in the Delta, but across this country, and at least voiced some of the concerns that are out there, at least begun a dialogue. And I think that means that this is already a success, because I don't consider that failure at all. Now, if we do better than that, that's great, bravo. But if not, these gentlemen have really made real change in their region and in their country.
Okay, Jetta, tell us about the feedback you had, when you were going from the States, and what they're thinking.
First of all, right, I would like to answer that, but I'm just going to jump to K's, right? It's when you sit down with people like this and you hear them speak, the amount of, I don't want to call it intelligence, because that belittles what they bring to the table. Like listening to Bismarck talk about what we're about, or Father Obi, or Jeff, listening to them, right, you see some truth that comes out of them. And the question is, if there are 1, 2, 3 people out there who hear these people, not just the creative part of my work now, who hear them and feel the sincerity in them, out of 100 people, there will be 2 people who would think and say, I would want my children to think like that. That is the kind of change that I see for the future. Now, going to the feedback. Now, special example I always give, there are 2 important people I have amongst my 21. One of them is called Alamco, the other one is called Joel. Now, Alamco was in one of the camps of the militants at that time, Camp 5, while Joel was with the military. So now Joel's army, the Nigerian army, went to wipe out Camp 5. So Joel was killing Alamco's people were killing Joel's people. At some point, Alamco survived. He had to swim for days to stay alive. And Joel stayed with the army but got dismissed at some point. Now, these are 2 people from the same community. And when I'm talking about community, I'm not talking about Lagos. I'm talking about maybe when you split Surulere into 50. That is it, that tiny Nembe community. Both of them from there. Right now, they hold hands, walk down the streets, saying the same message the 4 of us are saying. No matter how bad it is, people from their community will look at them and say, there has to be something good. And that is how good the feedback is. Now, we've gone to show the films that these guys created. I taught them how to make films. We send them back to their communities to make the films. Now, we took the films back to their communities so they could watch. I didn't have a hand in their films, trust me. They did it on their own, but I went with them to say, hey, community, come sit down, let's watch the film that your people have made. And immediately after the film, it sparked up a dialogue. There was a discussion where people in the community started talking to say, hey, what we've just seen in this film, that's how our society is. These are the problems we've been going through, and we should look for better ways of solving our problems without getting violent. The entire community spoke. In most places, you had the traditional leaders there. You had a representative from government. And people spoke without fear and respectfully. No one came out to just criticize and kill and all that. No. They just spoke the way you will never, ever hear people speak in Nigeria. And you'd see one of the episodes, it's coming up, that you'll watch it yourself. So it's amazing. Yeah, I know. It's amazing. This has changed me. Forget the people in the Niger Delta. like I've been telling people, they seem like our guinea pigs. No, we are their guinea pigs. With the